The sharp crack of breaking wood yanked me out of my book on that quiet evening. My cabin's front door burst inward, dangling precariously from a single surviving hinge. In stormed Beverly Pembroke, the formidable president of the Pine Ridge HOA, brandishing a laminated sheet as if it were a sword. "Citizens arrest!" she bellowed, her shrill voice shattering the serene mountain stillness. "By the authority granted to me under the Pine Ridge Homeowners Association bylaws, Section 12(4)(b), I hereby place you under detention for ongoing violations." I had scarcely managed to place my coffee mug aside before she barreled into my living room, her practical footwear leaving muddy prints across my polished hardwood floors. What Beverly failed to register in her indignant rage was the presence of my visitor, seated composedly in the wingback chair beside the fireplace. Judge Patricia Holloway methodically removed her reading glasses and pivoted to confront the uninvited guest. Still clad in her solemn black judicial robes from a formal event earlier that day, she exuded the commanding aura that could hush an entire courtroom with one stern look. She placed her chamomile teacup down with measured care. "Well," Judge Holloway remarked in a voice cold enough to solidify lava, "this is quite a creative take on citizens' arrest. Shall I enlighten you on the proper legal meaning of breaking and entering? Or would you prefer we proceed directly to the federal offenses you've just incurred?" Beverly's complexion shifted from victorious crimson to ashen pale in roughly 2 seconds. The laminated document slid from her grasp and drifted to the floor like a faltering moth. "Allow me to rewind and clarify how I found myself in a scenario wherein HOA president wrecked my property while inadvertently committing several felonies in the presence of an active judge. My name is Daniel Morrison, and 6 months earlier, I believed purchasing a cabin in Pine Ridge would secure my serene retirement. Following 3 decades as a software engineer in the urban grind, my sole ambitions were to pen mystery novels and observe the shifting seasons from my deck. The realtor had casually noted the existence of an HOA, but I assumed how troublesome could it truly be in a remote community of occasional vacation homes. I discovered the truth precisely 3 days after settling in, when Beverly Pembroke materialized at my doorstep armed with a measuring tape and a clipboard. She presented herself as the HOA president with the inflated demeanor typically seen in world leaders. "Your mailbox is 2 inches too tall," she declared, as though uncovering a global conspiracy. "Per Pine Ridge regulations, all mailboxes must stand exactly 42 inches from ground level. Yours registers at 44.25 inches. I assumed it was a prank. It was not." The formal violation notice arrived the following day, accompanied by a $75 fine and a 72-hour compliance window. That marked only the start. In the ensuing 6 months, Beverly detected infractions wherever her gaze landed. My deck stain lacked sufficient rusticity. My bird feeder drew unapproved avian species. My wind chimes produced noise pollution beyond 6 p.m. Every infraction carried penalties, and every penalty brought Beverly's gleeful condescension. I attempted dialogue with her. I participated in HOA gatherings where she ruled like a diminutive tyrant, dismissing any debate by citing esoteric bylaws that appeared to proliferate by the week. Fellow homeowners murmured their own tales of woe in private, yet feared voicing them openly. Matters intensified upon my installation of solar panels atop the roof. Beverly deemed them an eyesore to the architecture and insisted on their prompt dismantling. When I referenced state statutes safeguarding solar setups, she countered by drafting a fresh bylaw mandating aesthetic vetting for all energy-related fixtures. The conflict turned invasive as she began snapping daily photos of my land. I'd spot her skulking near my driveway's border, camera in hand, cataloging each supposed breach. She lodged grievances over my compost pile, my rainwater collector, even the arrangement of my firewood stacks. The accumulated fines exceeded $3,000. Then Judge Holloway chose to pay a call. Patricia, my deceased wife's old college roommate, had vowed to look in on me amid her mountain getaway. She pulled up Friday evening for what promised to be a tranquil weekend of reminiscing and trail walks. Beverly evidently noticed the judge's vehicle in my driveway. By Saturday morning, another violation slip materialized, accusing me of running an unauthorized boarding house. The penalty, $500 per night per visitor. This constitutes harassment, Patricia observed, scanning the notice during breakfast. She has no right to penalize you for hosting guests. She acts as if she's above the law, I responded, refilling our coffee. Last month, she hit Tom Garrett with the $200 fine because his grandson's bike was the incorrect blue hue. Patricia's face turned contemplative. I believe I'll prolong my stay a bit longer, if that's all right with you. This case piques my professional curiosity. That night, we were easing into a peaceful evening when Beverly executed her theatrical invasion. I'd been absorbed in my recliner with the novel, while Patricia pored over case files by the hearth, her robes unchanged from the day's proceedings. She proclaimed her citizen's arrest from outdoors just before demolishing my door. Daniel Morrison, you are under citizen's arrest for deliberate disregard of community guidelines. She'd evidently rehearsed this climax for months. The paper she clutched was a ridiculous concoction of Fox legal jargon, bestowing upon her urgent enforcement authority for chronic offenders. She'd even crafted a makeshift badge using the HOA emblem on a lanyard. Now planted in my living room amid scattered wooden fragments at her feet, Beverly confronted the harsh truth of her predicament. Judge Holloway stood from her seat with the solemnity of one poised to issue a severe verdict. Mrs. Pembroke, correct? Judge Holloway inquired, though it was clear she already knew the name perfectly well. I want you to fully grasp the gravity of your actions here. Breaking and entering constitutes a felony. Attempted false imprisonment is another felony. Impersonating an officer of the law is a criminal offense. Destruction of property exceeding $1,000 qualifies as a felony in this jurisdiction. But I'm the HOA president. Beverly stammered, her once imposing demeanor collapsing like a house of cards. I possess the authority to uphold community standards. Section 12-4 explicitly, your HOA bylaws do not override state or federal statutes. Judge Holloway cut in sharply. What they do provide, however, is compelling proof of premeditation. She retrieved her phone from her robe pocket. I'm contacting the proper authorities right now. Beverly's gaze flicked desperately between us, resembling a cornered creature. You can't do this. I'll have you both removed from Pine Ridge. I'll place liens on your property. You will remain silent and wait for law enforcement to arrive, the judge stated with unyielding authority. Daniel, do you have a camera handy? We ought to record the damage before anything is moved. I snatched my phone and started snapping photos of the scene, the shattered door, the splintered wood strewn across the floor, and Beverly's improvised security badge dangling from her neck. The judge described each image aloud with detached accuracy, building a verbal log of the evidence. The sheriff's deputies pulled up in under 15 minutes. Beverly launched into a frantic explanation of her HOA powers, thrusting forward a thick binder filled with bylaws and violation records. The officers heard her out courteously before advising her that she was under arrest for breaking and entering, vandalism, and attempted unlawful detention. This is absurd. Beverly objected as the cuffs clicked into place. I'm a pillar of this community. I chair 3 committees. My husband is a respected dentist. That's all very well, ma'am, one deputy said dryly, but it doesn't give you license to kick in doors. As they escorted her out, Beverly twisted around to shoot me a venomous stare. This isn't finished, Morrison. The HOA board will be informed. You'll never serve on a single committee again. Judge Holloway held her composure until the patrol car vanished down the road, then permitted herself a faint, satisfied smile. Well, that proved far more stimulating than my typical vacation pursuits. I'm sorry you were pulled into this mess, I said, eyeing the wreckage of my entryway. Don't apologize. This ranks as the most egregious example of HOA overreach I've encountered in 2 decades on the bench. I'm eager to watch how she attempts to justify it in court. News of Beverly's arrest raced through Pine Ridge like a summer blaze. By Sunday morning, neighbors I'd hardly exchanged words with were dropping by to recount their own tales of HOA tyranny. Tom Garrett arrived with a homemade coffee cake and confessed that Beverly had once tried to fine him for planting the incorrect variety of lawn grass. Sarah Chen, from a couple of cabins down, revealed how Beverly had actually used a ruler to measure her garden gnome's heights. An emergency HOA meeting was scheduled for Monday night. The community center overflowed, with attendees spilling into the aisles. Beverly's vice president, a jittery accountant named Harold Finch, struggled to bring the gathering to order. Given the present situation, Harold faltered, we must discuss leadership changes and reassess our recent enforcement practices. What ensued was 3 hours of long suppressed outrage. Residents hauled in cartons of violation citations, printed photos of Beverly trespassing on private land, and ledgers showing thousands in capricious penalties. It emerged that she diverted HOA dues to hire a private detective for monitoring residents she disliked. The motion to oust Beverly from the board passed unanimously save for Beverly herself, who joined via speakerphone from the county jail and cast the lone dissenting vote against her removal. The proposal to reimburse all fines issued in the prior year sailed through next. The bid to abolish the HOA altogether fell short by merely 2 votes. As most conceded, some structure was useful, just not under Beverly's iron rule. Judge Holloway sat in as my invited observer, scribbling notes with evident fascination. Afterward, multiple residents sought her advice on potential harassment claims. She advised them tactfully to seek local counsel, while emphasizing that Beverly's conduct had plainly violated numerous laws. The criminal proceedings advanced quickly. Beverly's attorney contended that she genuinely believed her presidential role conferred valid authority, but the prosecution countered that no reasonable individual could interpret HOA rules as sanctioning forced entry or civilian arrests. Footage from my security cameras captured her arriving equipped with bolt cutters and a pry bar implements clearly intended for burglary. The counterfeit badge and fabricated arrest warrant evidenced deliberate planning. Her documented pattern of targeting me proved escalating hostility. Judge Holloway had, of course, recused herself from presiding, but she appeared as a prosecution witness. Her account proved crushing. She detailed Beverly's profound detachment from legal principles and her perilous confusion of minor civic powers with police authority. Beverly's decision to testify personally backfired spectacularly. She maintained she'd committed no wrongdoing and that drastic measures were essential to safeguard property values. When cross-examined on whether she held HOA regulations above state law, she replied affirmatively, without pause. The jury returned after less than 2 hours. Guilty on every charge: felony breaking and entering, felony, property destruction, attempted false imprisonment, and impersonating law enforcement. During sentencing, defense counsel begged for mercy, highlighting her clean record and community involvement. A handful of character witnesses portrayed her as merely overly enthusiastic. The presiding judge, Rebecca Torres, a straightforward jurist with little patience for nonsense, remained unconvinced. Mrs. Pembroke, you terrorized an entire neighborhood under the pretense of enforcing aesthetics. You invaded privacy, harassed homeowners, and ultimately committed grave felonies because one resident dared host a visitor. Your utter absence of contrition is disturbing. She imposed 18 months incarceration, 3 years supervised probation, and restitution of $25,000 to cover repairs and associated costs. Beverly's mouth fell open as the judgment was pronounced. She leaned toward her attorney in frantic whispers, but the outcome was sealed. The bailiff guided her from the courtroom, while she muttered repeatedly, "But I was only protecting property values."